spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner. Welcome to 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. I am your host, Brian McFadden. It's another Tuesday. We've only got a few of these left, Jimmy, because the regular season is coming too close to an end for comfort. But it is Power Rankings Draft Week 15 in the books, Week 16 right around the corner. We might have just witnessed the craziest week. I feel like we've said that a few times, but this week it might be true. As a Colts fan and as an NFL fan, Jimmy, where's your head at right now?
I'm ready for the playoffs to start, honestly. Obviously that's not the Colts fan statement. The Colts fan, I'm absolutely devastated, but I'm kind of numb to it at this point. But the way we lost on Saturday was very historic. Yeah. I'm glad we had the same. Yeah, unprecedented, historic. Watching it with the family for a little early family Christmas. It was a beautiful thing to watch for the first half.
For 30 minutes. 30 minutes of game time.
It was crazy. Everyone was like, I can't believe that happened. I'm like, stop talking about it.
But you got bailed out.
Yeah, but I'm ready for the playoffs. I will say, John talking about Gardner Minshew in the intro, I've always wondered why we have that in there, but now I think he's fortune teller because he's.
Did we jinx Hurts? Did we? I have Jalen Hurts, and then the one, it's a dynasty league, but the one league that I'm still competitive in the playoffs. And my hopes are gone now. Literally, my hopes are gone. I know they haven't technically ruled him out, but I think all signs are pointing that he's going to miss. Mm-hmm. So we cursed it. It's 30 Minutes of Football's fault. It's John Chapman's fault for mentioning Gardner Minshew. He is one of the best backups.
He is the best backup in the NFL, according to John. So you go before the season or whatever that was.
I wonder if he, in retrospect, as a Niners podcaster, if he would have changed it to Brock Purdy at the time, knowing what he knows now.
Right. I guess Jimmy G and Brock Purdy, top two right there.
There you go. All right, so as we do every Tuesday, we're going to have a Power Rankings draft. Jimmy and I will take turns. You're going to get 32. I remember that because I had 32 last week, Jimmy. Take turns making our 32-1 NFL Power Rankings. We got our producer, Anthony Wayner, behind the scenes, running the timer and running our little tier maker list as we go through the teams. It's crazy. Let's jump into it. The NFL is insane. I love every second of it. It's okay the Dolphins lose when they lose the way they do, and that Bill Belichick loses the way he did. 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. Power Rankings Draft Week 16 starts now. All right, let's get going. Jimmy, you've got 32. Get us going.
Yeah, let's try to roll through these bottom teams. The Texans, they lost again. They kept it interesting against the Chiefs. Close, but when you look at the yardage, 500 yards to 200 yards-ish, around that, not exact. Unfortunate, the Chiefs had a couple fumbles that the Texans turned into touchdowns. So that's exciting. It would have been a lot worse. But the perfect tanking job.
Yeah, we've said it a few times this season with some of these teams at the bottom. If they're playing competitive and exciting and you almost beat the Cowboys and you almost beat the Chiefs, but you still lose and you got the number one spot, that is absolutely the best you can hope for as a Texans fan. So congrats. You guys are probably happy to be at 32 right now, Houston Texans fans, however, all like 7 of you at this point. So let's keep on rolling to number 31. If you lose to the team who's been at 31 for multiple weeks, and you had Trace McSorley as your quarterback at one point, you get to be at number 31. We're going to put the Arizona Cardinals here. Officially eliminated from the playoffs. They joined the group of teams that have mathematically eliminated. It doesn't get much worse. No offense. Third-string quarterback. Colt McCoy didn't look much better. Losing to the Broncos, who have been dreadful all season. Brett Rippon, not even to Russ. So I don't want to say anything else about the Cardinals. Kingsbury shouldn't be back next year. Financially, he'll probably be back. Let's keep it rolling, Jimmy.
Yeah, not much to say there. My next pick, I have the Chicago Bears. Not the Chicago Bears, the Denver Broncos. I have the Denver Broncos at 30. I got
I was going to object. I mean, I can't object, but I was going to say, I had a couple spots higher.
Yeah. After losing, they did win against the Cardinals, but as you can see, we have the Cardinals at 31. So we get to put the Broncos ahead of them. Brett Ripien came in and won a game for the first time. Yeah.
He
first
looked better
win
at
since
Russ
October.
as far as overall.
Yeah, first win since October. So it's pretty good. And Latavius Murray is still in the league. He got 130 yards for them. Yeah, so solid game against backups, but it's a game against backups, and that's why they're both bottom 3 teams.
I mean, they beat the team that they just switched places from 30 to 31.
Right, pretty much.
Good for you, Broncos fans. You don't even have a draft pick in the first. You got a W. I guess there's something there. But yeah, what a dreadful season. So let's keep on rolling. Number 29. I had your Colts at 30, but I'm going to put them at 29. I know they played great, especially defense, special teams. Their offense didn't look amazing. Jonathan Taylor, after such a disappointing season, he's done for the year. But if you lose the biggest lead in the history of the NFL, the National Football League's been around for over 100 years, you deserve to be at 30. Had the Cardinals been so dreadful, I might have put the Colts at 31. Do you have anything to add that you haven't already said with the Colts loss at 29?
Yeah, I mean, it was a tale of two halves. The defense and special teams as a whole played really well in the first half, and the offense played decent, but at a certain point, you need to get touchdowns when you're in the red zone so much, and they got a few field goals, and it was 33-0, so I wasn't really saying they would lose, but at the back of my head, I was like, man, wouldn't this be a way to lose? Because we did let up 33 points, 33 again, against the Cowboys in the fourth quarter a couple weeks back. But overall, I wanted to put the Colts at 33 just based off that number because it's a bad omen for them. But I'll keep them up here because they did have a pretty good first half. In terms of tanking and getting better draft pick, I wasn't too upset because I know we aren't making the playoffs. But we still have a 0.2% chance.
0.2, not because of how dreadful
of winning the division,
is,
basically.
Division, yeah. Because if the Colts have another historic collapse, the historic fourth quarter against the Cowboys, historic comeback second half against the Vikings, we will create a number 33 in the power rankings, and we will put the Colts below the Texans.
Thank you. That's all I ask.
That's all you ask.
All about history, yeah.
Yeah. The history buff, Jimmy Ray. All right, number 28.
All right, I'll go ahead and put the Los Angeles Rams coming off 145 yards on offense against the Green Bay Packers and let up a lot. I mean, the Packers running backs were running all over them, catching balls all over them. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but the Rams, they didn't have that little spark that they did last week. They played a slightly better team in the Packers, but as a whole, just not a good game for them, and I don't really foresee them going anywhere this season. And it sucks because they also don't have a first-round pick.
Also mathematically eliminated, defending Super Bowl champs. I know at one point they were flirting with the worst record ever for a defending Super Bowl champ. I don't know if that's still in play. Wouldn't surprise me. And let's be real, the magic they showed last week, it was 3 minutes of magic. And we'll talk about the Packers a little bit later. The Packers actually played one of their better games all season. But
first Super Bowl team to not make the playoffs the next season since the 2016 Broncos.
Yeah.
So after losing Peyton Manning and all that, so definitely a downhill spiral this offseason is going to be interesting for them. Carry on.
Number 27, let's go ahead and put Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. Definitely played tough. Fields, doesn't matter what defense he's playing. He did it against the Cowboys defense. He just did it against the Eagles defense. He finds ways to make plays, especially with his legs. They were competitive against the Eagles. At the end of the day, it wasn't enough. Philadelphia still came away, but I like watching this Bears team. I like watching Justin Fields. They're competitive. They're fun. They know they've got their quarterback. What else can you say at this point for a team that is as young and clearly rebuilding?
I mean, it's like we said about the Texans. The Texans have had some good games, but unfortunately the Bears have had that strategy down to a T for the last several weeks, basically this whole season. But yeah, Justin Fields always has a crazy run. Their defense is playing a little bit better than they have been, so that's always good to see, and that's what you're looking for in games like this. That's why players never tank. Teams probably want to, but players always play their best and try. So that's always good to see.
All right, let's get on rolling.
All right, so for my next pick, I have the Atlanta Falcons. Desmond Ritter's first game. This is the bottom of the barrel for the NFC South as a whole. I'm sure these teams are going to be up here quite soon in our power rankings.
We're going to have a few of them. We're going
to have quite a few of them. We can all agree on that. Desmond Ridder had like 97 total passing yards on 24 attempts, I believe, 26 attempts. Their running game is their bright spot. Their defense is not their bright spot. They let Taysom Hill and Andy Dalton throw all over them. Couldn't get stops when they needed to, and when you don't have a balanced offense, it doesn't help your entire team.
Yeah, when as bad as Mariota's been this year, and Ritter comes in, and you have to say, would they have won if Mariota was? That's a bad thing. That's a bad question. But hey, as a rookie, it's his first game. We're not going to put too much on it. Hopefully, for Atlanta's sake, he gets better. I have 3 NFC South teams in a row here. I was going to put one team next. I'm going to flip flop them, but for personal reasons. So I'm going to put the Saints next. Let's go ahead and put the New Orleans Saints at what are we at? 25. And like I said, I view these 3 teams, the Saints, the Falcons, and the Panthers, essentially the same. I swapped the Saints and the Panthers because the Panthers, in my opinion, I know they just lost, but they have the best shot to maybe take the division from the Bucs. I'd like to see that happen with Steve Wilks. So it's just a personal projecting what I want to happen. But look, the Saints team's not exciting. Andy Dalton at quarterback. Eked out that victory against an equally bad Falcons team. I don't want to talk about the NFC South any more than we have to, Jimmy.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, my next pick. I had the same exact strategy here, so the Panthers are next for me. Last week I was talking about how they've been averaging 150 plus rushing yards on average over the past 7 games. I think I jinxed it a little bit because they got 21 rushing yards on 16 carries in the game.
Dante Foreman was one of my starters. If I didn't have Zay Jones score 3 touchdowns and Jalen Hurts have 3 rushing touchdowns, I would have lost. Carolina's rushing defense. Where'd it go?
Yeah, negative points there. I mean, that's not going to help. And Sam Darnold, he's in probably slightly below average QB-ish. So you really need to help him on the defensive side and running the ball, and that did not happen this week against the Steelers, so that they weren't going to win that game. And 21 rushing yards on 16 carries. I mean, that's win
insane. That way.
But the Steelers do have a good defense. So,
by the way, I forgot to mention this with the Falcons at 26. The guy that I kept calling out as my sleeper in the preseason was Tyler Algier, finally showing what he could do. I love it. What a great game. It wasn't just – he's had some games where he's had like one big 50-yard run, but he was punishing. He was most of his – I think he leads the NFL in rookies yards above expected. He's just been a fantastic runner. The Falcons need to feature him more. I'm going to count that as a W for me.
Yeah.
Number 23, Cleveland Browns – I know they won. What a dismal game. Sandwiched between 2 great games on Saturday was the Ravens-Browns. Each team only had 9 possessions. It could have gone either way. It was not exciting on either side of the ball. Deshaun Watson gets just a tad better each week, but he's still, I still think he hasn't reached where Jacoby Brissett was at his peak this year. The defense is playing a little bit better, but the Ravens with Tyler Huntley wasn't able to move the ball very well. That's all I have to say on Cleveland. Let's keep on going to 22.
I have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we just kind of talked about with the Panthers. They had a pretty good defense, defensive performance, and Trubisky played pretty well as well. Yeah. Played better. I mean, it's hard to play any worse than a three interception performance. So he made a lot less mistakes in this game, and beat a pretty bad Panthers team. But I will say, Mike Tomlin's record for keeping 500, it's still alive. It's still alive.
They're 6-8 right now, right?
Yeah, they're 6-8. I haven't looked at their upcoming schedule, but we'll see if that can happen. There's still hope with that stat.
All right, I'm going to go on to the next one. Why don't you look up the Patriots, because I'm curious to see that's worth tracking. And while you do that, number 21, I actually put this team below the Steelers because if you lose in the fashion that this team did, and I think we had them at like 16 last week, they're going to fall. And that's the New England Patriots. And I know that wasn't Belichick's fault. And I know that he didn't call that lateral play. And it was but still, these are the guys you're coaching. And not enough people are putting Ramondre Stevenson at fault. It's all Jacoby Myers. Like, Stevenson wasn't supposed to pitch it to Myers in the first place. And of course, Myers wasn't supposed to try to throw the ball 30 yards across the field into Chandler Jones' arms. And, shout out to that absolutely, sending his lunch back to Mac Jones and just pancaking him into the ground. That was fun to see. But this Patriots team, I'm glad that they're not technically in the playoffs anymore as far as like if the season were to end now, because they do not deserve to make the playoffs. Be a travesty if they did. Defense has not been as good as they have been in weeks, and can't beat Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. Other teams, the Colts have beat the Raiders. I don't know. This Patriots team they need a lot of changes going into next season.
Yeah, they sure do. It doesn't feel like a Belichick team at all. And I mean, this game was absolutely just what a crazy ending. I think it took over for the Colts fake punt thing that happened in terms of one of the weirdest, lowest IQ plays ever, just on all fronts.
There's like zero benefit to that. The odds of you're not losing. There is zero reason to do that, and 2 players decided it was a good idea to try to pitch it.
Right. Yeah. But for the Steelers schedule, going back to them, they play the Raiders, they play the Ravens, and they play the Browns. So
those are winnable games.
Yeah, those are all 3 winnable games. I don't think any of those are going to be complete blowouts, but they could easily win all 3 of those games. So I see that happening. Probably not. They'll probably lose one. Lamar Jackson will probably be back. But Ravens Steelers always keep it a good fight. Fire Josh McDumpster.
Division game. Yeah, we'll talk about the Raiders, whenever we place them, which I imagine will be coming up soon.
Yeah, we'll talk about them right now. Yeah, we'll go ahead and I have them coming up next.
There you go. Look at that.
Yeah, so I mean that game was crazy as a whole. There's not much to say other than they probably shouldn't have won that game. The Patriots and the Raiders, I don't feel like either team really wanted to win it as a whole. Josh Jacobs had a somewhat solid performance. Max Crosby is always playing well, but yeah, I mean that Chandler Jones catch was just insane.
It was insane. It was happening at the same time. We're going to talk about the Chargers-Titans game. So you got one game where Herbert's driving down with that amazing pass, kick the game-winning field goal. At the exact same time, the Raiders, Chandler Jones is catching that ball. And I've got, I watched multiple games at once, and it was just like, it just put it into my veins. It was lovely football. We've talked about the Raiders plenty. I had them slightly higher just because, like I said, they're on the other side of that. The Patriots absolutely blew that game. You got to hand it to, whether you thought it was a catch or not, the fact that Derek Carr made that throw to tie the game in the first place, and then, of course, take advantage of the boneheaded play on the Patriots just to be able to win that game. I gave the Raiders a little bit of boost. They can put up points. That has not been a problem this year. I'm looking here. And I'm going to mentally switch. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to finish the NFC South now. I had them slightly higher, but I'm going to put the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19.
Yeah.
I know that they looked great. They looked maybe the best they have all season in the first half here against the Bengals. Got up to a 17-0 lead. Ended up being 17-3 at the half. But then just absolutely crumbled. This team cannot put it together for a full game. I know the Bengals are good, but you had a chance to show us, Bucks, because you're probably going to win this bad division. You're going to get a home playoff game. Show us that there is something to get excited about. And then they end up losing by, what was it, over 10? Like double digits?
Yeah.
Yeah, so nothing to like about this Bucks team. The defense isn't good. The offense isn't consistently good. They're broken. That's all I can say.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they started out the second half absolutely atrocious. I mean, nothing could have gone worse. It was like the Colts game on a somewhat smaller scale, but it did the whole thing kind of turned really quickly. Joe Burrow had 4 touchdowns against them, but they have no rushing game on offense. It seems like everybody, nobody trusts each other. Tom Brady doesn't trust the offensive line, and that doesn't help him giving the ball to the wide receivers that aren't playing their best football. They have a lot of names on their team as a whole. If you looked at them, you'd think they'd still be what they were when they won the Super Bowl, but obviously that's not the case.
Coaching.
So
look at the one major change is Bruce Arians isn't there. Todd Bowles is the head coach. Flamed out as head coach of the Jets previously. Maybe the guy's not cut out for that. He's an amazing defensive coordinator. I like that you didn't stop the clock, Anthony, because I'm going to call an audible, no halftime. We're just going to keep on rolling through. Let's keep talking about these teams. Number 18, Jimmy.
A team coming off a win against the Rams. I have the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
They're 6-8. I still don't think they've played their best football at all this year, but if they can keep Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon involved, I feel like that's the recipe for success for them right now. Christian Watson has been playing good this season. He still has some hiccups, and Aaron Rodgers always make sure to call him out on that in the post-game press conferences and to the reporters and stuff. But they got the win against the Rams, so good for them. Are they going to make the playoffs? Probably not. But they're
not eliminated.
They're up
yet.
there. They're not eliminated yet.
So I had, in my personal list, I actually had the Bucks above the Packers, and I switched it for this because as I was looking at it, I'm like, you know what? The Packers played one of their best overall games. I know it was against the Rams, but still, their defense actually played well, only allowed 12 points. They had success running the ball. some success moving the ball through the air as well. So I wanted to reward them a little bit. So that's why I put the Packers ahead. For number 17, let's go ahead and put the Seattle Seahawks. This is a team we had, I think, in our top 10 at one point this season. It was a flash in the pan, and it was a great story, and they're still in the playoffs, technically, if the season were to end today, yeah, they're right. No, they're not. They're right on the outside at this point because it's still Giants and Commanders, I believe. They're one game behind or like a half game behind Washington. But they still have the talent. Geno's still playing great. They ran up against a juggernaut in the Niners. So I'm curious to see what their end of season schedule looks like. I like the Seahawks story. They have the Broncos first round pick, so it doesn't even matter, how successful they are. They're still going to have, I think it's pick 3 or 4 right now. I believe the Rams play the Broncos this week, which means that will determine the Lions and the Seahawks pick for those first they got for the quarterback. So not a whole lot else to say on Seattle's front. Tyler Lockett had surgery on his finger, so he's going to miss the next few games, which means probably the rest of the regular season. Let's move on to number 16.
The Seahawks lost 4 out of their last 5, so unfortunate timing, unfortunate there. But I have the Commanders coming up next. They had a pretty bad game against the Giants, but they were still close at the end. There were some questionable plays at the end with the pass interference, no pass interference called, I believe, at the end of that game.
What was worse was the play before when Terry McLaurin checked with the ref twice.
Right, yeah.
Saying, hey, am I lined up? And then they called him for illegal procedure. That was almost, the pass interference was bad too, but that first one for some reason irked me more.
Yeah, I feel like most refs would agree that it was a ticky-tacky call, I feel like. Especially when that happens, but the report that came out didn't help anything. They're like, well, the ref still has to call it, and he was doing so much. Who knows what he was actually doing? I was like, if you watch the video, obviously that's what he was doing. They were talking to each other, you could tell. But yeah, as a whole, Taylor Heineke's fumble, I believe at like the 6-yard line for New York's 6-yard line at the end that got overturned. That was unfortunate. That was very close to not being a fumble, but it was. And that kind of turned the tides on that game as a whole, and the Commanders still had a chance. But unfortunately, those couple plays happened. But they kept it close. So they still would have had to get a 2-point conversion. But definitely a big loss in a crucial game against the divisional opponent.
Well, let's put that divisional opponent right above them because they got the victory, and that's the New York Giants. Look, they had such a hot start. They really only probably need to win one more game. So they're at 8 wins now, 8-6. If they can get to, 8-5, I don't know, because they had the tie with Washington. I don't know what the record is right now, but I know they have 8 wins. So if they get one more and they get 9 wins in this NFC, the great start that they had, even though they've been stumbling lately, will be good enough to at least get them into the playoffs. So good for you, Giants, winning on the road and prime time against the Commanders. Saquon looked better than he has in weeks. Kayvon Thibodeau, absolute one-man wrecking crew, especially in the first half there. I think he accounted for like almost 10 tackles. He had the scoop and score where he did the strip sack and he picked up the ball. He did it all in that play. He's an absolute star. They nailed that draft pick. Hey, you're in the top half here, Giants fans, and you're still in the playoffs, so be happy with where we put you.
Right. It was going better at the beginning of the season, but there's still some bright spots for the team. For my next pick, a team who's not had a lot of bright spots recently, the Tennessee Titans. They haven't been looking good at all this season, or not this season as a whole, but recently. They've lost 4 straight for the first time since 2015. They have a big game, Week 18, against the Jaguars, and I feel like that's kind of what their season will come down to. If they do make the playoffs, will they do anything? Probably not. But yeah, just an unfortunate season so far, and Ryan Tannehill did go out, but glad he's okay.
Yeah, Takeda Luna in the chat says, they should be lower than the Commanders, referring to the Titans. I couldn't argue with that. Maybe if the Commanders were coming off a win, we might think about the fact that Washington just scored 12 points against the Giants. But look, this is not a referendum on how good the Titans are. They're in free fall right now, but they're still the 4 seed in the AFC because they are in control of that division. However, I'm not so sure that's going to stay that way. If you'll notice, the team that's right behind them is going to be ahead of them in the power rankings. And I'm not going to put them next. At 13, I'm going to put the New York Football Jets. Coming off a game that they thought they had wrapped up, 13-10. Zach Wilson wasn't great, but he wasn't awful either, and had them in a position to win if it wasn't for that long touchdown to, what was his name, Brock Wright? Anthony will be able to tell me as a Lions fan, but Mike White already ruled out for Thursday. Huge game against the Jacksonville Jaguars this Thursday. I'm already feeling I'm going to lean to pick Jacksonville for that game because Zach Wilson, he's a liability. He's not necessarily the reason they lost this game, but he certainly was didn't help them win it either.
Yeah, and hope if the Jets need Quinn and Williams back, I feel like that's very beneficial to their defense as a whole and the interior defensive line. They have a good defense still, but that just adds an extra oomph to their defense. But yeah, they need Mike White. Mike White is the better QB out of the two and gives them a better chance to win. So for my next pick, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who's playing some of their best football right now. I still don't want to put them in the top 10 or one of the best.
I had him
teams.
at 11. Yeah. I had him just outside
so
the top
close. 10. But Trevor Lawrence has been playing crazy. I believe he has like 14 touchdowns, 1 interception in his last 6 games. He's balling out. Zay Jones, I made a little Crazy Jones. He was balling out as well. He won a lot of fantasy matchups in the playoffs.
Mine included.
Right, there you go. So who would have thought? So if you had him starting, props to you because Trevor Lawrence is balling and he's given all of his wide receivers time to eat.
I have him in 2 fantasy leagues. I started him in both. One of them was just I'm in the consolation, but the other one is the playoff matchup I mentioned earlier. Yeah, it's correlated. His success, he has now been a top 8 wide receiver or better in fantasy in 3 of the past 4 weeks. This Zay Jones thing, I think this might be a long-term play. Luckily, the league where I won is a dynasty league, so I'm looking forward to enjoying Zay Jones from Trevor Lawrence next year as well. I mentioned that I have the Jaguars at 11, and that's because I put the Ravens at 12. I know that they'll be better. Lamar, at least himself, hopes that he's going to be back this week. But even with him in, it hasn't been all that good. The defense has been better, especially against the run since Roquan Smith joined. But they're just not putting up points. Mark Andrews has not been the tight. They haven't used him properly. They still have a problem with weapons, but the run game is still good. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards looked good this week, but they lost at the end of the day to a Browns team that they should have beat. So I'm not feeling the Ravens right now. That's why I had them at 12 in my personal rankings. We'll put them at 11 in our power rankings here.
Yeah, that's fair. There are a lot of question marks there. Hopefully Lamar comes back and plays for him because I feel like that's a big part. The losses that they've been having, obviously. We'll see if they can play this week. My next pick, I have the Detroit Lions. They're cracking the top 10.
Look at that. Anthony, wait, round of applause.
Crazy.
Anthony, we have put the Detroit Lions in the top 10 of our power rankings in week 16. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, they're 6-1 in their last 7 after starting 1-6. They have their next few games are the Panthers, Bears, and Packers, which I think they'll all be favored in. They could go 3-0 here. They could go 10-7 to end the season. They could make the playoffs. I think everybody's hoping they make the playoffs because I think Detroit is a fun team, and I think their defense was a liability at the beginning of the season, which is why they were getting a lot of losses. But I feel like they're kind of stepping a little bit and giving the Lions offense somewhat of a chance to succeed. But they have so many weapons on the offensive side of the ball that they're just a fun team.
Yeah, I'm cheering for them. That's my secondary team behind the Dolphins this year is that Lions team. I hope that they make the playoffs and win a playoff game. Number 9, let's go ahead and put my Miami Dolphins. Even though they lost to the Bills, I found this game very encouraging. They put up 29 points. They had the lead against a team that has been 1 or 2 in our power rankings pretty much the entire year. I feel good about the performance they put from an offensive side of the ball. They looked much better. It was actually Tua was on target essentially all night. He had some wide receiver drops, both from Hill and Waddle. So this was not on Tua. This was just a superior team. The Bills are a better team, but the fact that the Dolphins were right there with them and had a chance to win this game in the snow in Buffalo, this is a loss I walk away with as a Dolphins fan feeling very good about.
Yeah, I kept them a little higher. I kept them around the same spot they were last week because I feel like they did play a lot better than they did against the Chargers, who I do have next. The Chargers are next on my list.
Same.
But the Dolphins have had a tough schedule in the 49ers, Chargers, and Bills. They'll get a chance against the Packers, Patriots, and Jaguars as they come up. So if they can rebound there, I feel like they'll be looking good heading into the playoffs.
Anthony, go ahead and put the Chargers at 8. Well, yeah, I think they've looked fit. Like I said, to last week when we did this, how they looked against the Dolphins is the best they've looked all year. The roster is stacked. They're getting healthier, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So we've been completely aligned here. I'll go ahead and put the Vikings at 7. We have seen where the floor is with the Minnesota Vikings, but we've also seen what the ceiling is. Any team that can come down from a 33-point deficit in a single half is a team that theoretically could hang with anyone. They have a lot of problems. Kirk Cousins gets very streaky. The defense definitely has been porous at times. But at the end of the day, they are an 11-win team cruising to a division playoff first-round home game. Got to keep them there. Number 6.
Yeah, for my next pick, I have the Dallas Cowboys. They've a lot of question marks like the Vikings have the past couple of weeks, and a close win against the Texans, and a pretty bad loss against the Jaguars. The defense couldn't stop them. They only have 1 sack the past couple of weeks. That's something they've been known for the start of the season. Now they're nowhere to be seen. So they really need to get that going. Dak's interception at the end of the game, that wasn't really on him. As you could see, the ball very much clearly bounced off of the receiver's hands. But there were still a lot of mistakes in this game, and they have some things to fix up if they want to be a legit contender. But they are in the top tier.
They're putting up points. The defense has really been a question mark lately, as you mentioned, and the fact that they're not getting pass rush is a big reason for that. Cincinnati Bengals at number 5. We keep mentioning every week we expect them to keep climbing. All the teams above them, 1 through 4, won this week, so I don't know how much more they can climb, at least until we see how they do in the playoffs. But what a great way to face adversity. Down 17 points in the first half against Tom freaking Brady to come back and win the way they did. Burrow ended up with 4 total touchdowns. This Bengals team is as good as any in the NFL, certainly right now, and this is the right time of season to get hot.
Yeah, they had 14 plays ran in the first half. The Bucs had 13 first downs in the first half. Wow. So a very different tale in the second half with Joe Burrow just balling out. People were chanting MVP at the end of the game. I mean, it was just it was a beautiful second half for them, and they were a legit contender. I have them actually at number 3. So I have them a little higher against some of the other teams because I feel like their defense is really good. Their offense matches up with them well. I think they're one of the most well-balanced teams in the NFL. But around this spot, I think are just all the contenders and stuff.
So let's hear you had at number 4 because that would be a team you would have behind the Bengals. I'm curious.
The 49ers. So the 49ers I still think are a pretty good team. I think you could go back and forth on all of these teams, and I think that'd be really good game. It's kind of just me picking Joe Burrow over Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy has been playing really well, but I think
that defense
is so good.
Easy, like no one can argue. I think at this point, especially with the Cowboys not playing as well, especially this 49ers defense is far and away the best in the NFL. Give us 2 more minutes and we'll close this out here, Anthony. I'm going to keep on rolling because we're going to be comparing these top really 5 teams at this point. The Cowboys, I think, maybe slight tier down, but I think these top 5 teams are the best teams in the NFL. I think we know this at this point. Got to keep them the same. Kansas City Chiefs, I think they have the ability to beat anyone in the NFL 1-32. The fact that they took the Texans to overtime, our 32 team, I don't reflect that too much because they still found a way to win. Jerick McKinnon has been a pleasant surprise lately. They haven't had to rely on Travis Kelce as much. Mahomes is still Mahomes. And even though it was ugly, they still found a way to win, keeping Kansas City at 3.
Yeah, 7 straight division titles now for the team. They obviously have a dynasty going on. Let's see if they can get into the Super Bowl win, though, because that'd be huge for them. For my next pick, I have the Buffalo Bills coming off a good win against the Dolphins. Josh Allen played a lot better. They were able to win it with a game-winning field goal at the end. Their defense made some big plays. But yeah, they continue to win. They're 11-3 and number 1 team in the AFC right now.
And once again, I thought that overcoming adversity against a very good Dolphins team, finding a way to win that game, they're peaking at the right time, but still, by default, the team that has been our number 1 for almost the entire season, the Philadelphia Eagles. Bad news with Jalen Hurts. I don't think it affects their spot in the power rankings. You saw in our intro, Gardner Minshew, he's one of the best backups in the NFL, so they've got a great play from an NFL standpoint. Fantasy, that's a different story. Faced some adversity from the Bears, didn't matter. They still found a way. They turned on the Jets when they needed to. The Eagles have to be the favorite to win the Super Bowl at this point because they're so well-rounded, because they don't really have any obvious weaknesses. But we're getting closer. We're going to know who our playoff teams. We're going to know who the real contenders are, and we're going to actually see these teams play off for a chance to win the Super Bowl. Eagles continue to be the cream of the crop. That's it. Look at that. We've closed it out. Anthony, let's run back 10 through 1. I'm going to read it out for the audio listeners. Our top 10 goes for NFL Week 16. The Detroit freaking Lions at number 10. My Miami Dolphins at 9. LA Chargers at 8. Minnesota Vikings could have been much lower had they not won that game at 7. Dallas Cowboys at 6. The Cincinnati Bengals at 5. San Francisco 49ers at 4. Kansas City Chiefs at 3. Buffalo Bills at 2. And the aforementioned Philadelphia Eagles at number 1. Thank you again, as always, for watching, for listening, for supporting everything we do here at Legit Football and the 30 Minutes of Football podcast. Thank you to Jimmy, as always, for joining me. I will be off next week because I will be on vacation between Christmas and New Year's. We'll try to still get some sort of content out there if Anthony and Jimmy are up for it. Make sure to like and subscribe if this is your first time wherever you're consuming this. Jimmy, any last words before we wrap up the show?
I hope the Colts. I'm going to the Colts Chargers game on Monday night, so that should be fun to watch Justin Herbert and that team play for a chance at the playoffs. See if the Chargers can make the playoffs for the first time in a little while. And if the Colts lose, I mean, it's nothing off my back at this point.
It's only good. It's only good for you.
If they do end up winning, and the Jags and Titans and lose this week, then I'll be a little higher hopes next week. So because that's closer and closer to this to the playoffs. Because if the Colts can win this week, then they play the Giants and the Texans, so they could win. You never know, but at this point, so they could be the 5th pick in the draft by the end of the week.
So we will start. You'll get if you watch 11 Yards with Jimmy and Anthony. I'm assuming you guys are doing that still tomorrow.
Yep,
Anthony doing fantasy on Thursday. I will be doing game picks this Friday. So I will have a chance to wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year prior to today. But thank you again for tuning in. Thanks to Jimmy for joining me. Hope you enjoyed these Week 16 NFL Power Rankings. This has been 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. I'll see you later this week. That's spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner.